Even the most ardent Elon Musk fanboys have to admit that Twitter has become something of a distraction recently. I think his own tweets and polls have highlighted this, but perhaps more worrisome than anything, NASA managed to launch their SLS moon rocket last month, while SpaceX's Starship, always touted as leaving the competition in the dust, is still languishing on a test stand in southern Texas. I think I'm going to get quite a bit of flack for this video, but in for a penny. Now, this video isn't gleeful, neither is it an attempt to do Musk down. As space and science communicators for over a decade, we at the good ship Awesome always want any space endeavours to succeed. And as you'll see in our videos, there's always what we refer to as the Starship caveat. That is, whatever space missions or technology designs are being planned by the world's space agencies, if Starship succeeds, it tears up the rulebook, making access to anywhere in the solar system cheaper with far greater payloads. So we absolutely want SpaceX's current plans to succeed. Similarly, when I was writing this video, it was going to be all about the grounding of Starship and the NASA turtle beating the SpaceX hare to space. But as much as I don't want Twitter to be a distraction, it is. He won't stop tweeting, changing the Twitter rules, changing them back again, having polls as though we're the right people to run a company, and sucking all the oxygen out of the room. And all this is prompting us to ask the same question as the BBC. Why is Musk shifting so much energy to Twitter, culture wars, libertarian free speech crusading? Does his energy match his boundless wealth? Can he divert this much attention to something else without it affecting SpaceX? Well, SpaceX isn't privately listed, so we don't know what its value or fortunes are like, though we can say that there seems to be no drying up of funds being ploughed into their Boca Chica and Kennedy Space Center R&D and launch sites. Musk's Boring Company is a private company too, so we get no signs from that. But Musk's other company, Tesla, has taken quite a hit since Musk sold off shares to donate to charity last year, a luxury that you or I don't have. Shall I pay tax or shall I give some money to charity instead? How about the latter, so I can give it to my charity and get a massive tax break as well? Now, whether this is true or not, I don't know. It's only what's been reported, but Tesla's stock price took a hit again when Musk needed to sell a chunk of it to buy Twitter. That stock price surged again when Musk mooted the possibility of stepping down as Twitter's CEO this week. And I recorded this a couple of days ago, so he might have already stepped down at this point. I imagine both the boards of Twitter and Tesla would give their right testicles to get him off the Twitter pipe right now. Okay, that's Twitter done and out of the way. It's not. I'm obviously going to come back to this later, but I want this to be about SpaceX and Starship in particular. Their Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy and Dragon capsule for human crews have already given the world a glittering new capability for access to space, but Starship is the gleaming prize of low-cost access to space and as much payload as we could ever hope for. The ISS could be constructed in 5 flights of Starship instead of the 36 shuttles that launch the modules and components. A Starship is being designed under NASA contract to land humans and vast amounts of cargo on the surface of the moon as part of their Artemis program. And Musk wants dozens of Starships flying out to Mars. Each Mars launch window takes supplies and habitats there in advance of a human landing in Starships later this decade. We last spoke about the progress of Starship here. It was the summer and it was all about Federal Aviation Administration approval, and since last summer I don't even know if all the stipulations have been met by SpaceX to allow a flight, and we certainly haven't seen the much awaited orbital test flight. The last test flight without the booster section was in May last year, and we've seen nothing but development activity since that rapid flurry of test explosions and launches in early 2021. Well, a year and a half's gone by. All of this critical year in orbital test and evaluation has sailed past without an orbit attempt. That means the flight schedule for the 3 planned crewed Starship missions are slipping back month by month by month. When SpaceX was sprinting ahead with exploding stainless steel cans in Boca Chica, the talk was of how fast SpaceX can outperform NASA and its contractors. Now SpaceX is having to design and build brand new boosters, brand new launch complexes and brand new flight hardware. The whole operation doesn't look quite so different to NASA, with the challenges, bureaucracy, and yes, every libertarian billionaire's greatest enemy, health and safety, having to be taken into account. We expect the first commercial flight of SpaceX's Starship will be a test flight, with billionaire Jared Isaacman paying his way into owning his own astronaut corps and astronaut program. The second flight is expected to be the Dear Moon flight, with billionaire Yusaku Maezawa taking a crew of artists and influencers around the moon. Then, the third declared flight of Starship is for space tourism pioneer and, you guessed it, billionaire Dennis Tito, who has the good sense to let a few other billionaires risk life and limb before he ventures out. Now, of course, these are all scheduled flights on a rocket that's not yet left the ground and is still a metal boilerplate with no internal systems for the crew. That's still such a long way off that we don't know if it ever will materialise. The plan was for the first flight in 2020, then 2022, and then at least one launch to the Red Planet, each successive Mars launch window, making that 2024, 2026 and 2028, to send infrastructure to support a human landing on Mars in 2029. Well, two of those windows have already flown by, and 2024 is now only a year away, without anything more than static fires of some of the Raptor rocket engines. But Musk still hasn't announced that he'll be on the manifest for any future flights yet. A bit odd, don't you think? What self-respecting billionaire with their own space company isn't itching to get out beyond the atmosphere themselves? Richard Branson did it as soon as he possibly could. The same with Jeff Bezos in July 2021. But we have 3 human crews lined up for the Starship rocket, and none of them have Musk included. And he's not shown any interest in going himself, other than saying he'd like to die on Mars in a flippant comment years ago, which if he ever does go to Mars, he will die there, as this video explains. And Musk himself seems to have gone through some kind of narcissistic transformation recently. His focus seems to have moved. There doesn't seem to be any drop in enthusiasm for his space activities, but he's lost the love of many people since buying Twitter, which seemed to be only a threat to start with until he tanked their stock and was forced to carry out his threat to buy them. Something that he threatened to buy because he kind of wanted that adoration. Twitter then became about Musk and what he was going to do to change it into a more egalitarian free speech platform, which then morphed into an expose of crimes that were neither crimes nor of any particular interest to anyone but right-wing conspiracy theorists. I mean, compared to Volkswagen's emissions cover-up and Ford's exploding Pinto cars scandal, this is hardly corporate malfeasance. What we have here is a company that had a lot of liberals working for them and therefore had a liberal bias. The only shock here is that there's one US tech company that isn't fiercely libertarian. Well, wasn't. Musk has made sure it is now. All any of us wanted was a platform to shout at one another and to post pictures of our dog. I don't care whether it's owned by Leon Trotsky or Benito Mussolini, if you let me do that in peace. But after seeing off advertisers, annoying Apple with unfounded rumours and possibly tanking Tesla, we're now seeing him looking for a dignified exit from Twitter after he realised that social engineering isn't quite as easy as non-human systems engineering. Now, whether he's been told to leave by the Twitter or Tesla boards, or whether he's realised his understanding of free speech conflicts with his understanding of libertarianism, I don't know, and I don't much care. But I do know that an Elon Musk concentrating on SpaceX instead of culture wars is a much better place, and one that can only help with his stated goal of making humanity interplanetary. Now, I've got a bet with myself that Starship isn't going to work. It's a bet with myself because I'm quite bipolar on this. On the one hand, I really want it to work, but on the other hand, we're already seeing that developing this giant rocket isn't as easy as it seemed a year ago. One man's crusade to build the world's biggest flying machine. And on where we heard that before, it's very Howard Hughes. And how did that end? I just wonder if this Twitter and free speech crusade could be Musk's descent into insanity. I don't expect him to lock himself into a Vegas hotel room hoarding his own piss, but whichever side of the culture wars you're on, if you go too far down that rabbit hole, that way lies madness. I do hope I'm wrong. I do hope Starship succeeds, and I do hope for a little bit of peace and quiet. But let me know what you think. We respond to every comment, so let's see your thoughts on any of this. Will Starship succeed? Is Twitter too much of a distraction? Has Musk gone too far down the culture wars rabbit hole? Am I talking complete rubbish? But if you're watching this as we release it, more than anything else, do have a great festive season. And check out these videos.